$7.3 billion. The latest Pentagon budget request calls for a major increase in procurement for two of the U.S. Navy's most important ship-launched missiles: 785 Tomahawk cruise missiles, 540 SM-6 interceptors, enough firepower to flatten a medium-sized nation twice. Every defense outlet on the planet printed it as victory. Magazine depth? Solved. Industrial base? Mobilized. They are wrong. The budget will be approved as early as October 2027. Components are procured, assembly begins, testing, delivery. Those 540 SM-6s reach the fleet in late 2029. Those 785 Tomahawks, 2029 to 2030. The ceasefire agreement between the US and Iran will expire on April 21st. If no further agreement is signed after that date, the US Navy will have to continue to fight with the few remaining weapons in its arsenal. 850 Tomahawks already fired in 38 days of epic fury, the most expended in any single campaign since 1983. 30% of the thawed stockpile gone, 80 SM-3s spent, and the SM-6 production line in Tucson cannot keep pace with a single week of high-intensity combat. The budget solves 2029. War is happening now. Today on Navy Story, we are dismantling the most dangerous illusion in modern defense reporting, the assumption that dollars equal deterrence. We will prove that $7.3 billion is not a solution. It is a confession. A confession that the production calculus has become the Navy's single greatest vulnerability, not next year, but in the next 12 days. Subscribe now. Let's run the math. To understand why that $7.3 billion headline is worthless, stop looking at Iran. Iran is not the real enemy. Iran is a variable. 2,500 ballistic missiles as of March 1st, 10,000 Shahed drones produced every month at $20,000 to $50,000 each. Dangerous, but calculable. The real enemy is the differential equation between production lead time and combat consumption rate. Congress can write a check tomorrow. Raytheon cannot accelerate chemistry. An SM-6 is not a simple metal tube with a motor. Its solid fuel rocket booster must be chemically cured over weeks at exact temperatures. Rush the process and the motor cracks on ignition, inside a Mark 41 cell, next to 95 other live rounds. Booster lead time, 33 months. The guidance seeker, the component that allows the missile to find and track a target autonomously, takes 36 months. You cannot legislate thermodynamics. The molecule cures when it cures. Raytheon's Tucson facility produced 125 SM-6s per year before Epic Fury. The February 2026 framework targets 500 per year. The Alabama Redstone Integration Facility already finished its $115 million expansion last month. New floor space is online, but a building is not a production rate. And frankly, anyone who has ever watched a defense program try to sprint from peacetime tooling to wartime output knows that floor space without trained hands is just expensive square footage. Analysts estimate peak output will not reach 500 per year until 2028 at the earliest. Today, the line produces 150 to 200. Tomahawks are worse. RTX delivered 100 in all of 2025. The Navy burned 850 in 38 days. Consumption outpaced annual production by a factor of 8.5 to 1. The new framework targets 1,000 per year across a 7-year ramp. Japan's 400-unit order is already delayed because the factory cannot keep up. Every tactical decision the Navy makes right now, whether to intercept a Shahed swarm with an SM-6 or let close-in weapons handle it, whether to expend a Tomahawk on a mobile launcher or save it for a hardened nuclear facility, is a response to this constraint. Not politics, not bravery, the production clock. There is one system architecture that breaks this equation. But before we get there, you need to see how deep the deficit goes. The math is absolute. Now let's break the numbers. An Iranian Shahed 136 costs $35,000. Iran builds 10,000 per month, 120,000 per year. Total annual production cost, $4.2 billion. Spread across dozens of dispersed facilities, the United States has been bombing for 38 days without fully eliminating. The interceptor designed to kill it, an SM-6, costs $8 million per round at the FY 2027 implied unit price. One SM-6 to destroy one Shahed. That is a 229-to-1 cost exchange ratio in Iran's favor. Standard doctrine against ballistic missiles is shoot-shoot, 2 interceptors per inbound. Against a Shahed swarm, Aegis allocates 1 SM-2 or ESSM per drone. 50 drones inbound, 50 cells empty. Iran launches the next wave 4 hours later. later. Senator Mark Kelly, March 4th. If they have more offensive assets than we have defensive, we get into trouble really quickly if our magazine depth goes to 0. Magazine depth does not degrade gradually. It collapses catastrophically. The last 20% of your VLS cells are the ones reserved for the threats that sink ships, ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles. When those cells are empty, the destroyer is not degraded. It is defenseless. Each SM-6 requires 63 man-hours of skilled assembly labor, nearly 8 working days per missile. But the constraint is not hours, it is hands that exist. Training one new SM-6 technician takes 6 to 9 months. Raytheon posted the SM-6 Munitions Acceleration Program Manager position on April 1st, 8 days ago. The listing is still open. A job posting is not a trained pair of hands. It is a prayer that someone qualified arrives before the ceasefire collapses. Pre-war rate, 125 SM-6s per year. Target after Redstone expansion, 500 per year by late 2028. Today, 150 to 200. The FY 2027 budget requests 540. Do the math. The factory cannot build what the budget demands. Not this year, not next year. Picture a conveyor belt. One SM-6 rolls off every 7.5 working days. At the other end of the world, a Burke destroyer empties that missile from its VLS cell in 4 seconds. That is the conveyor belt the United States is running a war on. Tomahawks. The Navy consumed 850 in 38 days, 22.4 per day. Raytheon builds 0.27 per day at the 2025 rate. Consumption outpaces production 83 to 1. That is not a gap, that is an industrial death spiral. An Arleigh Burke carries 96 Mark 41 VLS cells. Typical CENTCOM loadout: 24 SM-2, 8 SM-6, 8 SM-3, 32 Tomahawk, 16 ESSM quad packed in 4 cells, 8 VLA SROC. 96 cells. The entire offensive and defensive capacity of a $2.2 billion warship. Now subtract. When Tomahawks run out, the destroyer loses its 1,600-kilometer strike arm. The carrier strike group falls back on its air wing. 450 nautical miles of combat radius, 800 with tanker support. Strike geometry shrinks by half. When SM-6s run out, nothing engages threats beyond 170 kilometers. The defensive perimeter contracts. The carrier moves closer to the threat. Shorter warning time, higher probability of a leaker, a missile that penetrates every layer. And when SM-3s run out, think about this. The entire mid-course ballistic missile defense layer, the one designed to kill warheads in space before they re-enter the atmosphere, disappears. The only backup is thawed, land-based, fixed position, already 30% depleted. Each empty cell does not reduce capability linearly, it reduces it exponentially. The kill web is overlapping layers. Remove one and the others absorb its load. Remove two and the system saturates. Remove three and the geometry collapses. There is a number, smaller than $7.3 billion, buried deeper than any budget line, that the Pentagon fears most. We will come back to it, but first, you need to see how the network fights when the magazines are thin. If you followed that math, if you understood why 83 to 1 changes everything about how you read a defense headline, you are exactly who this channel was built for. Subscribe now. The kill web was never designed to fight with full magazines forever. It was designed to make every round count. When magazines are full, Aegis runs dense layer defense, multiple interceptors per threat, overlapping zones, generous shoot-look-shoot timelines, the peacetime math, the PowerPoint math. When magazines are depleting, the kill web shifts to precision allocation. The system stops killing everything. It starts triaging, and triage is where the network earns its existence. Step 1. An MQ-4C Triton orbiting at 55,000 feet over the Gulf of Oman detects a launch signature, infrared bloom, bearing 047 380 nautical miles. Its AN/ZPY-3 sensor classifies the track. Ballistic trajectory, probable Shahab 3. Estimated impact, Al Udeid Air Base. Step 2. That track passes via TTNT, Tactical Targeting Network Technology, to the Aegis combat system aboard an Arleigh Burke destroyer in the Persian Gulf. The SPY-6 radar slews to the bearing and acquires the target within seconds. But Aegis does not fire immediately. The weapons coordinator, a senior fire controlman with 15 years of experience, evaluates 3 questions. Threat classification, defended asset value, remaining inventory. 1 SM-3 is assigned, not 2. There are not enough left for shoot-shoot doctrine. 1 round. It must hit. Somewhere inside that CIC, a 26-year-old fire controlman just bet 300 lives on a single missile. If it misses, the engagement cascades. And this is where the architecture does something that no single warship, no matter how advanced, could ever do on its own. Track data passes through CEC, Cooperative Engagement Capability, to every Aegis ship in the strike group simultaneously. CEC shares fire control quality data, raw radar returns fused across multiple hulls. A second destroyer 80 nautical miles away generates its own solution from shared sensor data and launches an SM-6. Terminal phase. The active seeker goes autonomous. It finds the target on its own. One missile, guided by data from a drone it never contacted, using radar energy from a second ship it cannot see, killing a target detected by a third platform in a different domain. The eyes and the fists are never in the same place. Now zoom out. When Tomahawk cells are empty, the kill web adapts. An F-35C off the Ford detects a mobile launcher in western Iran using its AN/APG-81 radar. It does not fire. It passes coordinates through Link 16 to an E-2D Hawkeye, which routes the track via NIFC-CA to a Virginia-class submarine in the Arabian Sea. The submarine launches a Tomahawk Block 5. The weapon flies 800 nautical miles, receives mid-course satellite updates, and strikes the launcher while the F-35 hunts the next target. 3 platforms, 3 domains, 1 kill chain, 0 redundant expenditure. That is a kill chain most defense analysts spend careers studying without seeing executed live. You just watched it in 90 seconds. Now, what breaks it? This is why the kill web is the only answer to the production gap. When you cannot build fast enough, you make every round lethal. And the only way to do that is to feed it perfect data from a network no single platform can replicate. But the kill web assumes connectivity. It assumes TTNT is not jammed, CEC is not degraded, Link 16 survives contested electromagnetic warfare. Strip away the data links and what remains is a destroyer with 40 rounds, a 15 nautical mile radar horizon against sea skimmers, and a crew at general quarters for 9 hours. The kill web does not care about headlines. It cares about data links and latency. And it is held together not by code or satellites, but by the people standing watch inside the machine, and by a number that no data link can fix. But strip away Aegis, strip away CEC, strip away the satellites, the data links, the $7.3 billion budget line. What remains is a 34-year-old production technician on a concrete floor in Building 808, Raytheon Missile Systems, Tucson, Arizona. He has been working 12-hour shifts 6 days a week since February 28th, the day Epic Fury began. His hands are the bottleneck, not Congress, not Raytheon stock price. His hands. Here is what those hands do for 63 hours per missile. The solid fuel booster arrives from Aerojet Rocketdyne. The propellant grain must be X-rayed, ultrasonically scanned, visually inspected for microfractures. One void, invisible to the naked eye, and the motor detonates on ignition. Not on a test range, on the ship, inside the Mark 41 cell, next to 95 other live rounds. The guidance seeker arrives separately. It must be calibrated in an anechoic chamber, millimeter precision across multiple radar bands. One misalignment and the missile goes autonomous with bad eyes. It misses the target, or it acquires the wrong one. The warhead, the control surfaces, the thermal battery, a one-shot chemical cell that generates power through molten salt heated to 500 degrees Celsius in milliseconds. Each component from a different supplier, a different state. Each inspected, integrated, tested as a subsystem, tested again as a complete round. Like an organ transplant where every organ comes from a different donor and the body only gets one chance to accept them all. Except this body travels at Mach 3.5 and the surgery happens on a factory floor. 63 hours for one missile that will be fired in 4 seconds. Now here's the number the Pentagon fears most. Not $7.3 billion, not 36 months, 6 months. The time it takes to train one new SM-6 assembly technician to full proficiency. 6 months of supervised work before Raytheon trusts that pair of hands on a live guidance section. The Munitions Acceleration Program Manager position was posted April 1st, 8 days ago. Still open. The person who fills it will spend their first months building a training pipeline, not building missiles. The Alabama Redstone expansion completed in March. The building is done. The tooling is installed. But a building does not build missiles. Trained hands do. Raytheon needs to hire, clear, and train hundreds of new technicians before that floor space translates into 500 SM-6s per year. The workforce ramp to full rate? Through 2028 at the earliest. The facility is ready. The people are not. The ceasefire expires in 12 days. And at the other end of this supply chain, 7,000 miles from Tucson, a 22-year-old gunner's mate third class aboard USS Gravely, DDG-107, hand loads the SM-6 that just arrived into a Mark 41 cell. Deck temperature, 112 degrees Fahrenheit. The round weighs 3,300 pounds. The crane is manual. One misalignment damages the cell, reducing an already depleted magazine by one more round that cannot be replaced. He does not know the name of the technician who built this missile. He trusts the 63 hours of precision that went into it with his life, and 300 others. This kill web means nothing without the technicians in Tucson and the gunner's mates on the deck. Two ends of a supply chain held together by human hands, building and loading the arsenal one round at a time through training, precision, and sheer endurance. War is not a budget hearing. It is metal, chemistry, and human hands at the absolute limit of what the industrial base can sustain. Remember the headline, $7.3 billion, the largest missile budget in Navy history. Every defense journalist in Washington printed it as proof the crisis was over. Now you know it is a receipt for a delivery that arrives in 2029. Now you know it is a receipt for a delivery that arrives in 2029. The budget requests 540 SM-6s. The factory builds 200 this year. The budget requests 785 Tomahawks. Raytheon delivered 100 in all of 2025. The Navy consumed 850 in 38 days. The SM-6 takes 36 months from contract to combat. The Tomahawk takes 24. The ceasefire expires in 12 days. If it collapses, the fleet fights with what is bolted inside the Mark 41 cells right now, not what is sitting in a congressional document. Every analyst who read that headline and concluded the crisis was over made the same mistake. They confused dollars with deterrence. They confused a budget line with a loaded VLS cell. They were looking at the spreadsheet. They should have been looking at the production clock. You did not make that mistake. The Navy fires 22.4 Tomahawks per day. Raytheon builds 0.27. The fleet burns through an SM-6 in 4 seconds. The factory needs 7.5 working days to replace it. A Shaheed costs $35,000. The interceptor that kills it costs $8 million. The workforce to build that interceptor takes 6 months to train. The factory expansion is done. The workforce to fill it reaches full rate no earlier than 2028. Look, the consumption curve is steep, immediate, and accelerating. The production curve is shallow, delayed, and constrained by physics. The two lines do not intersect until 2029. The next 12 days determine whether the fleet survives that gap in combat or in ceasefire. That is the calculus no cable news segment will ever explain. Not because it is classified, because it is industrial, thermodynamic. The grinding, unsexy reality that wars are won and lost on the factory floor in Tucson, not on the bridge of a destroyer. The kill web can stretch a depleted magazine into a precision instrument. It can place the right interceptor on the right threat across 5 domains simultaneously, but it cannot create ammunition from data. It cannot reload a VLS cell with a software update. Physics does not negotiate, logistics does not forgive, and the production clock does not stop because Congress passed a bill. Wars are not won by the nation that spends the most. They are won by the nation that converts money into warheads fastest and sustains that conversion under the relentless pressure of industrial time. The $7.3 billion is not the answer. It is the down payment on an answer that arrives in 3 years. The real answer is standing on a concrete floor in Arizona right now, building the arsenal one round at a time, 63 hours per missile, and showing up for the next shift anyway. If you would rather understand the 36-month lead time than celebrate the $7 billion headline, subscribe to Navy Story. Share this with anyone who still believes funding equals readiness. The factory floor knows better. The math knows better. And now, so do you. We will see you in the next brief.